yeah, Dr. Amos Wilson in his phenomenal piece, Black on Black Violence, the Psychodynamics of Self-Annihilation in the Service of White Domination, is a masterful piece that we all need to study. And it was written over 20 years ago. It is a definitive issue on violence in our community under oppressive conditions. What we do know for a fact is that if you look across the country and all these cities where all this violence is going on in our communities, what you find that is significant across all of these young people, the young men and young women as well who are engaging in violence, and more young sisters are engaged in violence also right now. But there's one thing that is particular to all of them, and that they are 2, 3, and 4 generations fatherless.
During the summer, but I'm against the, this is what is happening. And I have experience in working with the school boards and volunteering, and our church is going in and help teachers, is that when you have limited money, and now you spread it out to another form of education, another expense, it's like having too many credit cards. One credit card I can control, 5, 6, or 10, limited income, I'm spreading it out. And it's kind of a systemic way of diluting the true quality of education. I was over at Southeastern, my alma mater, and myself and Dr. Tuff, we go over and we speak to the young people, and they're competing for pupils. That is ridiculous. Charter, so-called charter school and private school. If you want to be a private school, you go and you raise your own money. For myself, I'm a pastor of a church, not expect the state to fund a school if I decided I want to have a school of our own. It's public, and it's diluting.
Well, good day to you, wherever you are, wherever you may be. This is a wonderful, marvelous Monday. Thank you for joining Urban Interest. I am your host, Angela Matthews. We've got great stories as well as guests today. Listen, Black parents and children are saying enough. We'll tell you about that story. And then we'll talk about that Black art over there in the UK. What's going on with that? Reparations, still a conversation that we are having. I'm going to get a little bit more in depth with that today. And then there was a special forum held in Detroit with one of the school system, about the school system. So we got a special guest that's going to talk to us about that as well. So stay put. We got a great segment for you today. Very informational and educational. We'll be right back after these messages.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick.
The virus will die.
It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine.
To keep safe and strong.
Be like happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Today, we bring you the first part of our global broadcast exclusive conversation.
The streets of Tahrir have once again been filled.
Key issues here at the United Nations Climate Change Conference remain unresolved.
Police are saying the protesters to move further and further away.
I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!
All right, let's get to our stories. Black parents and students, their children, have finally had enough. They are suing the Bloomfield school system for racism and civil rights violation. Oh my goodness. Children have been talking. Have we been listening? This is getting out of control, racism and injustices in our educational system with our children. Let's take a look at this particular news segment.
Yes, and I want to let you know that these are serious allegations. Bloomfield Township Police say they are investigating them, and the investigation is ongoing. They can't give me an update at this time because of that. They had extra patrols out at the school today to make sure that students were as safe as possible. In the meantime, students are demonstrating, and parents are filing a lawsuit saying that the racism has happened before and is not being addressed. This is the lawsuit filed in federal court by a 15-year-old Bloomfield Hills High School student and her parents against the district and its leaders. They say the district is ignoring racist and even threatening incidents.
She's afraid for her safety. She doesn't know who to trust. They're talking about killing not just my baby, but all the minorities at that school.
The lawsuit describes threatening graffiti and social media posts.
These are threats to kill and eliminate African Americans.
The suit shares a picture of what the suit describes as a science teacher's gravity lesson,
where the teacher just so happened to choose a black dog and put a rope around the neck of a black dog.
I am appalled with this story. Some people are asking, why would these parents be subject to this particular kind of hatred in these particular days in this tiny suburb? And as it is, some parts of the South are like this. These expressions of biases causes lasting damage to our students. We've been traumatized by this constantly. The school district not doing enough about it and just passing it by as if it's just old children on social media. Come on now, written on the walls, as well as why would you demonstrate a black doll with a noose around their necks? Attorney Mungo, as you saw in that particular segment, has been with Urban Interest many times. We would definitely speak with him in the future as much as he can about this case. I'm getting tired of this. We ought to be tired of it and doing something about it. There is hardly a museum in Europe that does not have art and artifacts from some country. The latest controversy has the UK telling Ethiopia that they will loan them art that they stole from them 150 years ago, that they won't loan that to them. Can you believe it? Let's take a look at this story.
Hi, I'm Femi OK. Today, why are looted Ethiopian treasures from the 19th century still in the UK?
I'm Malika Bilal. A new exhibition in London showcases plundered artifacts from the Abyssinian Empire, casting a spotlight once again on the debate over whether the spoils of war should be returned to their home countries.
So right now, you are in the stream. We're live on Al Jazeera and YouTube. So leave your comments in the chat box and Malika and I will do our best to get them into the show.
My name is Bobkin. I'm an activist and an economist, and you are in the stream.
Ethiopia's government is calling for the return of cultural artifacts plundered 150 years ago by the British Army. The relics, some of which are currently on display at London's Victoria and Albert Museum, were stolen in 1868 after the Battle of Magdala. That's when British troops raided the fortress of Abyssinian Emperor Theodorus II to release a group of imprisoned missionaries. Ethiopia has previously requested that several British institutions give back hundreds of manuscripts and artifacts, and that the remains of the emperor's young son, Prince Alemayehu, who was kidnapped during the same raid and taken to Britain, be returned.
V&A Museum Director Tristram Hunt has proposed lending items in the museum's collection to Ethiopian institutions as part of a long-term loan partnership. But Iman Mohammed, who pitched today's show, suggested this idea instead. Take a look.
This is centrally a sovereignty issue. Looted treasures must be returned to Ethiopia. But beyond sentimentality, we need to make this arrangement more practical and sustainable. So why not support Ethiopia in the design and management of museums and tourist attractions? Why not extend technical support and research collaborations? And why not share in the profits of such ventures and for once tell balanced stories in the places where battles were actually fought? Why not bring Queen Victoria's crown to Ethiopia for display, as not all Ethiopians can afford to travel to the UK?
So, should looted historical artifacts remain in Britain's museums, or should they be repatriated to Ethiopia? Joining us now to discuss this, we have Maza Mingiste. She is a Fulbright scholar and the author of the novel Beneath the Lion's Gaze. She joins us from New York. Also in New York, Maxwell Anderson, an author and the former director of the Dallas Museum of Art. And in Newcastle-under-Lyme in the United Kingdom, we have Awol Alo, and he is an associate professor of law at Keele University. Hello, everybody. It's great to have you here in the stream.
So I want to start with our community because we put this question to them, and this is what we asked. Do you think artifacts plundered from Ethiopia by the British Army 150 years ago should be returned? And this is pretty reminiscent of a lot of the comments we got. Stanley here says, this isn't a question to debate. I mean, the answer is obvious. However, it may not be as obvious to this person who also tweeted in. Paul said it should only be returned to Ethiopia once they can guarantee that the artifacts won't be sold to art lovers around the world. And currently, I think they're safer in British hands.
So let me correct the story. So the British stole the artifacts 150 years ago. And they've loaned them to Ethiopia, and they will not, not give them back. That's crazy. You take something from me, then you loan it to me, but you don't want to give it to me. This is absolutely crazy. Much of the art does have biblical significance. Ethiopia is mentioned in the Bible many times, and the UK not once. Everybody knows Jesus did not speak English. Give the artifacts back. It's real obvious. And then for the person who wrote, well, can you guarantee that it won't be sold, to someone else? People are just, I don't know what to say. Sometimes people's foolishness is just really astronomical. That's just my personal commentary. Listen, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk with a young person with regards to reparations. This is a conversation that we've been having for a long time. Kamm Howard is going to speak with us about it. So stay put. We will be right back.
Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
911, what's your emergency? Oh my God! A child just died! Signal 13 involving a child. The medicine route.
It is time. Time to put the guns down. We've had enough. My future.
My future.
My future. Our futures are in your hands.
Adults, put the guns down.
When I play, sleep.
Walk to school.
Visit my friends. I want to feel safe.
It's time. Time to end gun violence.
Our lives depend on it.
Adults, this is not a request.
We demand that you protect us.
Put the guns down. We have hopes. Dreams.
Goals.
Don't let a split second of anger with someone else take away my entire lifetime.
Help us live. Help us thrive.
Help us build a better future.
All right, everyone, sit tight, because we're going to still have this conversation about reparations. You need to understand it. We need to get a full understanding of why we're talking about this. So we have Mr. Kamm Howard that's here with us, National Co-Chair, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. He is a Chicago businessman and real estate investor. So nationally, Kamm has been a 16-year member of the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, NCOBRA. the longest running active organization that has championed the cause of reparations in the US. So it's not that they popped up and started talking about this a couple of years ago. This has been a long-standing conversation. Hello, Kamm, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today, Angela?
I'm very, very good. Now you gotta have to hold on to your seats because sometimes I get a little passionate, you know, when we're talking about things to me that are so obvious. I don't even know why we're having so many conversations about it so long. So, you know, tell us how you got involved with the reparations movement.
Well, I have been a quote unquote activist for quite a long time, and I was doing work around reentry. I was doing work around health in our community, and I determined that, you know, it was just too many things that we needed to fix as a result of, you know, just the discrimination. I didn't know a lot about reparations at the time, and so I went to an event that, you know, a Kwanzaa event, and someone said there will be a reparations event after this event. So I went, and that day I joined N'COBRA. And because I thought that, you know, the resources that we're attempting to extract or pull from the government is really what's needed. We need an overall comprehensive plan to address all the various things that are happening in our community that are of such negative impact to us.
You know, you're so right about that. And it seems as though the more traction that we make, you know, we're pushed back a few steps. Because I don't know if you look at things that happened 50 plus years ago, it's kind of like we're back in those times. How could that even be? We're fighting for voting rights and, you know, fighting against oppressive tactics and laws. We're fighting racism, and we're just in this thing all over again, it seems. So, explain what reparations are and why should we get it. There are some conversations that says, hey, you had your opportunity at 40 acres and a mule. You had a Black president for 8 years and you got some stuff. Go someplace and sit down and be quiet.
So N'COBRA, I'll start with the definition of N'COBRA, how N'COBRA defines reparations, and then I'll talk about a brief new educational component that we're doing around reparations. So we define reparations as the process of repairing, healing, and restoring to people who were injured due to their group identity and violation of their fundamental human rights by a government, corporation, institution, and individual. Now, what does that all that mean? It means that reparations is not one thing, it's something that happens over time. The repair happens over time, and the fight to get the repair happens over time as well. So it's a process that we all have to go through. Blacks, whites, everybody in this country have to go through that process of getting to this point of resources being targeted. But we're introducing this concept called reparations 1, 2, 3. And if you can remember 1, 2, 3 and what each one of those means in order that they're stated, then you can talk to anybody around reparations. You can defend reparations to anyone, and you can make a demand to reparations to anyone or corporation, institution, government, whatever. So number one is crimes. Crimes were committed against our ancestors. The crime of kidnapping us from the continent, starting wars on the continent to have other Africans sell other Africans. But the initial crime was the kidnapping, and then the transporting us to this country, and then the enslavement, which a host of all other crimes took place during the enslavement. And we call it crimes because the international community has declared that the transatlantic slave trade, slavery, colonialism, apartheid were crimes against humanity. And no matter whether or not they were legal in Europe, they were crimes against humanity. They were always crimes under international norms and laws, even at that time. But these people in Europe practiced them and said it was legal, so they did it. But they were actually crimes. And there were three periods of crimes. There's the period of enslavement. In America, 1619 to 1865, the period of Jim Crow apartheid, 1865 to 1965, so somewhere around there. And then the post-apartheid period that we're living in, there's still crimes being committed against us as a people today. When we look at mass incarceration, when we look at police terror, when we look at predatory lending, when we look at all these things that either plunder us, lead to what we call genocide, because genocide does not just mean killing people as a whole. It also means creating conditions that lead to early death, creating conditions that lead to mental harm. And we know all those things exist in this country today. So crimes are still being committed today, and for the period of crimes that have been done in the past. So those crimes have led to what we call injuries. We are still injured from those crimes. When you look at all the disparities around the country between blacks and whites, Tom Burrell said it best. He said, blacks on the top of every bad list in America and on the bottom of every good list in America. You can't say it no simpler than that to show that the continued injury from those crimes exists. And then finally, if there were crimes committed and there's injuries that occur and that people are experiencing, then repair is necessary. Reparations is an obligation to correct the injuries from the crimes that were committed. So 1, crimes, 2, injuries, 3, reparations.
I like it. Very simple and to the fact. If you think about it, crimes, injury, there's something to repair, reparations. You know, there was a Yahoo story saying that entitlement would cause more problems. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, whether it caused problems in this country or not, the Civil War caused problems, but it had to happen, you know, but it also, you know, the country grew as a result. And so our thing is justice. If you're afraid of justice, then just say this is not a country of justice. Just tell the truth. You just, you know, stop playing the games. But if you say you're a country of justice, then the #1 justice issue in this country is repairing the injuries from the crimes that you committed against the people in your own population for 400 years. If you're not going to deal with that, then don't talk about this as a country of law and order and justice and truth and, you know, all those so-called things in the Constitution, because it's a total lie.
Wow. You know, Kamm, there are some blacks who say, you know what, we don't need reparations. All we need is an apology. That's all we need. So why would anyone, you know, who looks like you and who looks like me would even be against reparations?
So we kind of put that small minority, when I say minority, probably about 25% of the people, 75%, last poll, about 75% of black folk believe and desire reparations. And if you look at it for Jim Crow crimes, it's about 85%. It raises up if you leave slavery out and just focus on Jim Crow. But for slavery, Jim Crow and current crimes, about 75% of our people believe that. So about that 25%, I think they have divided into about 3 groups. One group is a group that we can deal with. And that's a group who really just don't know the issue, don't understand, you know, how deep our current conditions are a result of those actions in the past. We can get to them. That's probably, you know, about 20% of that 25%. Then there's a group who just don't want it, who don't want to upset white folk. We know who those are. They've been here all the time in this country. They've been, you know, we call them the house servant or the house Negro. You know, there's always been that group, and that's what oppression produces. They had Jewish collaborators. They had Jewish people during the Holocaust who did the exact same thing. So that's part of oppression. We know that that's a sickness, that's an illness that is produced by the oppression, by the atrocities being committed against us. We're not going to affect them. So we don't even try to affect. We know they exist. We know that's a sickness. We know it's an illness. And part of our reparations is to address that mental component that has us siding with the enemy, siding with the oppressor, siding with the criminal. We know that exists as part of, you can go, they call it, I think, a Helsinki syndrome or something, where you side with your kidnapper. We know that exists, so we're not going to be afraid of that. And then as the other small point, part of that contingent, who just, you know, think that they made it and they don't need it. You know, they don't associate themselves also with African people or Black people in this country. So we don't focus on that. We still try to get the education out for that 20–30% who can, who just don't know. But that's 75% of our people is well enough for us to push this issue forward.
Okay, so the imagery of that, there are more people who do not know with regards to reparations and are not in agreement is false. We have many that are, as you say, that 75%. I'm glad that you brought that out, because mainstream media is what I call them, would make us believe that those who are speaking out against it that there are more that are saying, hey, just say you're sorry, and we can move on from this particular situation. I'm in agreement with you. Pay what you owe. It was a crime, I was injured, and now you owe me. So listen,
exactly right.
You know, there's something, you know, arm me with some information. So when I'm having conversations, they can be like, girl, you is radical. Yes, I am. So listen, Kamm, there are some whites that are realizing that the highest COVID rates on the planet, with regards to the record deaths, not us. There was more them than us. And we're talking about mass murders and all of those things. So are we paying for America's sins? We had this high COVID rate, you know, shooting us out of the box. I mean, every time you turn around, not only do adults have guns in their hands, our kids are killing each other. 14, 15, 17 years of age. I've just heard of some tragic incidences over this weekend. 17-year-old girl got killed. 10-week-old baby died in the crosshairs and fires of that. Little boy is at the bus stop, gets shot down. What's going on? What's happening?
So yeah, you know, Dr. Amos Wilson in his phenomenal piece, Black on Black Violence, the Psychodynamics of Self-Annihilation in the Service of White Domination, is a masterful piece that we all need to study, and it was written over 20 years ago. It is a definitive issue on violence in our community under oppressive conditions. What we do know for a fact is that if you look across the country and all these cities where all this violence is going on in our communities, what you find that is significant across all of these young people, young men and young women as well, who are engaging in violence, and more young sisters are engaging in violence also right now. But it is one thing that is particular to all of them, and that they are 2, 3, and 4 generations fatherless. We know fatherlessness produces all type of bad behavior in children, or it leads to all type of bad behavior in children. And you've not had that dominant male presence whose number one priority in the family is discipline. Also economic provision, but discipline is what the male produces across all species in a family. And if you don't have that father presence, all those other things exist. Why are there 4 generations, 3, 4 generations of fatherless being expressed in our children today? Because of the intentional war on Black males, starting in the 60s with dumping heroin in our community, at the same time removing factories out of our communities and sending them into the suburbs, and then later into Asia. But after that, dumping crack cocaine in our community. We know these were government initiatives, government programs, government, you know, clandestine government programs to feed the government's intentions off the backs of Black people, addicting them to these drugs, having them dependent on this economy to survive. These young people who are engaged in the crime are literally at the bottom of Maslow's list of survival needs: food, shelter, and clothing. They do not have that. In Chicago, one of the highest percentages of students are homeless students. About 20% of Black students are homeless. The basic needs are not being met. And so you get this type of violence. We have to do something to bring fathers back into the home. That's long-term. On the short term, we got to get these young people incentives to take advantage of the programs that are out there. And what we call incentives, what N'COBRA is pushing, is guaranteed basic income for these young people who would be violent, who are violent, but who we can get them into some type of programs, as long as we're giving them something to help feed themselves, take care of that basic need, then they can get that basic income. So we're fighting for that as a way to reduce violence in our community, because we know where it comes from.
My. Oh, such heartbreaking realities to look at. And I'm with you. Of course, we're with you that something has to be done. And we do have a blueprint. I mean, it's not like we don't know what to do. It's just a matter of going about doing it. Foundationally, we always say that we are part of the fabric of America. America would not exist without our involvement, inventions, accomplishments, and all of those things, from the time we were brought here up until today. And we have a lot of legislatures that legislators, excuse me, that are immigrants. So speak on that briefly. And then there's a model, it's called the Everson program. Is that a good model for local reparations? So speak briefly on a lot of our legislators being immigrants, as well as is this Everson program a good model for reparations?
So everybody in this country is an immigrant except for Africans. None of these people came, you know, originated here except for the indigenous people. So, you know, this is a white settler state. It grew out of colonialism, which is a criminal enterprise, and became a settler state. And then, you know, as they attempted to even out the numbers, because in the South, there were more blacks in large numbers in these states than there were whites, or higher majority. So they began to send to Europe to get people to come over to balance out those numbers, or to grow the numbers of whites to blacks in this country. As far as a lot of the legislators being immigrants, we have an Asian caucus, we have a Hispanic caucus, of course, the Black caucus and the Progressive caucus. And we are getting, you know, we've had to get votes from co-sponsorship from all of those caucuses in order to move the federal legislation. We can't do it with just the 53 Black congresspersons, because you need 218 votes to pass. And currently we have, and I can talk about that a little bit more, but currently we have 194 co-sponsors. So that means that 140 plus had to come outside of the Black community. And it wasn't all white, so you had to get the Hispanic and the Asian. So the foreign element, the immigrant element, to some extent helps us, because they actually see the oppression. They come from countries that have been oppressed and colonized by America as well, and, you know, say that they're here to better this country. So we hold that, we push that before them. You saw what happened in your country under oppressed conditions before you came here. Now you see the same thing and worse happening to Blacks at this time. You have an obligation to help us correct this issue. So in some ways it helps. Evanston, when we talk about local reparations, there's really 3 or 4 purposes for local reparations, and certainly Evanston feels that purpose. One is to engage in what we call triage, and NCOBRA calls triage, reparations triage, and that's to address a specific issue or 2 or 3 in a local area where there's tremendous amount of injury, illness, pain, etc., and begin to target some resources to that particular area. You're not going to do everything on a local area, but in the local level. But there are certain things that you can do. Everson said that, you know, we are losing Black homeowners. You know, we were 25% of the city, now we're 17%. We have to do something to stop this bleeding, this triage. We have to do something to stop Black people from leaving this city, which was our home. We've been here 5 generations, et cetera. And so they chose housing. In other cities, they might choose something else. But in every local area, we're basing the same struggle demand off of that we exist in a state of genocide. We're dying earlier than everybody. We have all these illnesses and sicknesses, infant mortality 2-3 times higher, maternal mortality 3 times higher, life expectancy 10, 15, 20 years less. I mean, all these conditions, genocide, mental illness is off the chain. For instance, in Chicago, from 2019 to 2020, Black teen suicide rates nearly doubled over the previous year. In the same city, white teen suicide rates reduced 15%. Same city, same age range. The difference is Blacks and whites in the conditions. That's genocide. So in every city, you can find evidence of genocide. In every city, you can find evidence of plunder. With Evanston, you know, they, you know, talked about how they moved their houses and redlining and all that. That was a plunder that didn't allow them to build wealth. And in every community, you can also find evidence of apartheid. That's separate development. Evanston looked at over-policing around marijuana. We looked at just police terror in general. So every community, you're gonna find these things, genocide, plunder, and apartheid. Whenever you see disparities, you know that was separate development. It was caused by separate development. That's apartheid. That's what apartheid means. And so that model is there for everybody to use because the conditions exist in every location.
All right. Thank you so much for giving us information about that and helping us to understand it. Because when people are having conversations, sometimes they get bits and pieces, you know, information and try to have a full-fledged conversation without knowing everything that goes in it. And I'm going to have to let you go. But I do want to ask this question very briefly is, what are your thoughts? Has Biden done enough, President Biden done enough to move the needle with regards to reparations? Can you give me a brief statement about that?
He has done nothing. He campaigned on him and Sanders' unity platform, said that HR 40 was the first step in addressing the historical harms. And he backtracked and said now he favors a study. But HR 40 is more than a study. So he's not using HR 40 language anymore. So he hasn't done anything. That doesn't mean we're not gonna push him, keep pushing him to do something, because once we move this out of the House, we know it can't pass the Senate. And so we have to pivot to an executive order. So we will be putting pressure on Biden in the coming months on HR 40 as an executive order, because we hope and intend to pass it out of the House within the next couple of months.
Woo! All right, Kamm, Mr. Kamm Howard, National Co-Chair, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. We're going to come back and we're going to talk to you down the line about what you just said about HR 40 and what, you know, you feel like you just said nothing, but we want to go into a more in-depth conversation about that. So Kamm, would you come back with us in the very near future?
I most certainly will. Thank you, Angela, for having me.
All right, listen.
Thank you for that energy this morning.
Oh, hey, they call me an Energizer Bunny Rabbit sometimes, but you know, these conversations fuel me though, because seriously, we need to have the information. We need to be armed better because we are in some very tough times. We are, and we're fighting for everything all over again, seemingly. So we need people like you to keep us abreast as to what we need to be conscious of and focused on and not sleep, because we are in the midst of a revolution, and I ain't gonna even go into that.
That's right.
All right, Kamm, have a great day. Wonderful holiday season, Christmas season, as well as be blessed in the new year.
You as well. Thank you.
All right. Listen, everyone, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back. And we're going to have more dynamic conversations here. We're going to talk with Pastor Reverend Rev Brooks, and we'll tell you about that particular story. A meeting was held last week on an issue that most thought was settled years ago. However, in this word, parochiaid, I do believe that's the word, is giving public money to private entities. Really, we've been talking about that too. How are you going to give public monies to private entities? It does not make sense to even mention it. So after this particular look, we will come back with Reverend Brooks.
Will be a different person, because what is at stake is our freedom for our people and our children. All of this other stuff is nonsense. The children could read at the 8th grade. Our kids can't read at the 3rd grade. We going backwards. Okay, I'm gonna sit myself down.
I agree with you 100%. Mother, one thing that I think is to Tsunami's point is that we can't forget about the law and the folks that are at the table making these decisions. Sri Canada, our K-12 folks met last week. Dr. Rice is there, and every time Sri gets a chance, I gotta give him his credit. He says, "Where's the $94 million for the literacy lawsuit?" Dr. Rice, he pivoted. "Oh, we got this federal grant in this." I said, "That's $5.6 million. That's not 94." But so we have to have lawmakers that will hold them to task every chance we get, and we have to have strategy and count those votes. That's really what this comes down to get those folks to actually move on our behalf. To your point, if we want equity, we have to get rid provisions that lock us into spaces of not enough money.
And we've been doing that the whole time. When I say we, there's people in this room that have been active 50 years. Tracy, am I correct? Keep the vote, no takeover. Some people in this room have been active, but some people in this room are phony because you go to meetings and you don't do nothing else. You just go to meetings. You got to be an active, and that's all I'm going to say.
My name is Aaliyah Moore. I do apologize. I was very late. And I did miss half the panel and the discussion. But I totally agree with Ms. Moore because I'm a parent. I'm a product of Detroit Public Schools. My daughter graduated 2020, and now I have a 6th grader that's virtual because I still don't believe in the system in between. But it's a struggle at home. Dr. Beatty did not even want to give our children textbooks. You know, moving forward in the next 2 years, they're telling us, oh, all the materials will be virtual yesterday in a listening session. And if the child wants a textbook, they have to have or be an exceptional student.
All right, everyone. Let me make a correction. First of all, I said it was Reverend Arkles Brooks, and it's Reverend Arkles Brooks. And Reverend Arkles is with us today. Thank you so much, Reverend Arkles, for being with us to talk about this conversation. In listening to that meeting, I am livid. Unmute your mic, please. I'm instantaneously livid with regards to having a conversation about taking public monies and moving it to private schools. Private means they're already funded. So why does private schools need our public dollars? I don't understand that. So help me to understand what that is and what is Parochiaid.
I like to respond to that, and I agree with you. I have my background is I have a science background and biological sciences, and I've owned my own agencies. And when the education system in this country historically had been for and in other countries for the elite, what our Constitution and public schools means just that, with our funds that go so any and everyone could go to schools equally. Now, a private school, that's their option, then they should use private money. I've worked at Cranbrook. They didn't ask public to give money to them. They had to afford it. They use the same books. I taught at Cranbrook during the summer, but I'm against this is what is happening. And I have experience in working with the school boards and volunteering, and our church is going in and help teachers, is that when you have limited money and now you spread it out to another form of education, another expense, it's like having too many credit cards. One credit card I can control, 5, 6, or 10 limited income, I'm spreading it out. And it's kind of a systemic way of diluting the true quality of education. I was over at Southeastern, my alma mater, and myself and Dr. Tuff, we go over and we speak to the young people, and they're competing for pupils. That is ridiculous. The charter, so-called charter school and private school. If you want to be a private school, you go and you raise your own money. For myself, I'm a pastor of a church, not expect the state to fund a school if I decided I want to have a school of our own. It's public, and it's diluting, and it's like if you divide and you dilute, you destroy. And so I felt very much against it. And my experiences directly with a charter school hadn't been chosen as assistant principal, along with Dr. John Toffer.
Reverend Arkles, you went on mute again.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
So what has happened is this, is that you find public schools, which I would rather see more money put into public schools, and that means you have equal opportunity. Now, if you want to go to a private school, like the parochial schools, I know the Catholic schools, they all funded themselves. They weren't begging. So what I have seen in charter schools is this. I worked with Wayne Elementary School. I followed helping teachers. There's 5 or 6 of us from our church. And then there's the school down the street from us. Our public school outperformed the charter school. The thing I have against charter school also is you put non-educators, people who have no idea of education administration, but they have the money. Because when the charter school started, you have to have your own money to present to the state and have your own things in place. Then they wouldn't give you money until 3 to 6 months afterwards. That's putting it right in the hands. We have basketball stars who have schools with no educational administration experience. So I have also witnessed schools where when we had charter schools, the teachers were paid almost 20% less than the public schools, but the administrators got 20% more than principals were getting. And I can know right now in some of the southern southwest areas, there's schools.
All right, you kind of went on mute again, Reverend Arkles. And so what I wanna segue into, I just looked up the word private. Okay. And so private means having no official or public role or position. So when we talk, when we talk about public dollars, that means my tax dollars in a particular city, my tax dollars, you're gonna take my tax dollars, my hard-earned tax dollars, take them and put them someplace I don't know about it, I don't support it, I don't live there, my kids are not there. So you're gonna take my money without my permission and go support something else that I know nothing about, that truly doesn't need my dollars because they're using their own dollars. So we heard a little bit at the club, only about 3 minutes or so. What was the purpose of the meeting at the yacht?
Exactly.
Was it that, or was it that encompassed with something else? The meeting at the yacht club. What was it? What was it about? Was it about, those public dollars to private entities or schools, or was there more to that meeting? Can you hear me?
Well, yes, okay. Am I coming clear? Not,
yeah, you're coming clear now. Yes, I can hear you. Okay.
Yes, you're exactly right. Here's the other thing about that private money. We have no checks and balances. We have nothing to say, no input, even though it's our money. But when it goes private, then we have no input. The charter schools basically were supposed to be backed and supervised by major universities. They were supposed to come in and make sure things were like it was. We complained, and we did not have that sort of input from several of the universities that were supposed to be over the charter schools. There's been no real gain by having charter schools. It diluted the system. It's kind of like if you have a systemic situation, just like we have our virus, the shots that we're having for that, the vaccinations. So if you dilute that and say, well, we're going to give some of this over here and over that, and we don't have enough, but we're going to add some water to this vaccine so that go further. It becomes systemically diluted, and neither one are very effective. And that's why we're having, with the public school system, you're taking the funds, which are, you know, we're already short enough as it is. And like you said, we're giving money to folks that tell us to then say, go somewhere else. You can't tell us what to do because we're private. Well, if you're private, then you should use private money, as has been done. And what's amazing is that even the parochial schools, like the Catholic schools, they've never begged us for money. Cranbrook never asked us for money, but it's a money grab sort of thing. My experience and some of the work I've written about, even to the president, is that you're putting the money in the hands of people who already, in corporations, already have money. You know, you have major corporations because they're making money here. Now, here's another way we can make money. And actually, someone actually slipped and said that really the private schools, I'm not talking about the Catholic schools, are schools of profit. The profit for public schools is highly educated people that can invest and can give back to the community, that are highly intelligent, highly educated in the public schools. So when you dilute that, then you're cutting back on the ability of the public school system. And when you have a problem, you don't go and spend money that you don't have. We don't have enough money in the public schools. Why you have to raise taxes sometimes. So it's a way of diluting. And then again, going back to the 1900s of making education a more an elite thing. And I've been in schools firsthand for over 30 something years. And Detroit School, when I went and graduated, was one of the top 3 education boards in the country.
Okay. So we're having some few technical difficulties with Reverend Arkles Brooks. But I do believe the gist of what he's saying is that public dollars and tax dollars need to remain with the public. And if it's private monies, should go to, if private schools want to raise the dollars for those educational purposes, then fine, but do not take the right of trying to take public tax dollars or monies to private schools is just wrong. And there's no better way to put it, and it's just wrong. Reverend Arkles, if you can unmute yourself. My last question to you is, public schools have charter schools. So how will this affect those public schools that are charter schools? Yeah, just need you to unmute. Give us a second, everyone. We are just trying to get our technical difficulties under control here. Reverend Arkles will be, Arkles Brooks will be back with us in just a moment. So listen, let's see if we can do this. Let's see if we can take a quick commercial break and come back, and we will finish up our conversation with Reverend Arkles Brooks.
Okay.
All right, everyone, we are still talking with Reverend Arkles Brooks, and we're talking about public monies, our public tax dollars going to private schools. And so, Reverend Brooks, you are a clergyman and you are a pastor. What is your position? I think I know what it is, but I want you to share what your position is with regard to what we're talking about today.
I think that it's a mistake and it's leading us down a road that would lead to a capitalistic attitude where people begin to look at the money than looking at the children and looking at what we're supposed to be doing. True teachers cannot have a case of they can't help us. They just can't help stop themselves from helping and worry about kids. As an instructor, and I've had other jobs and businesses, I've had students come back and say, Pastor Brooks, you really helped me in high school and college. That's our reward as teachers. And I know it for a fact, the charter schools, and I have 3 degrees, and I went to a charter school just to see after we left the other ones, and I had a friend who wanted to try to get me into science. So I just went over there and talked to the director, and they didn't even interview me. And I have almost 30 years experience in business and degrees, and yet still they're paying the administrators exorbitant monies in some of these charter schools. And the charter schools are supposed to be supervised, and they were not supervised. We even reported some things, Dr. Telford and ours, and it wasn't corrected. There's money going there. The top people are getting the money. The teachers aren't getting as many. And some of these so-called assistant people, I know assistant person to a science teacher of mine is in a charter school. I won't mention it because I don't want to lose a job. But he was sitting in the classroom for 3 days a week, getting almost $200. And I just did some substitute work because I loved it. I was retired. I was only getting about $30 a day with 3 degrees in the in the public schools. Yeah, but the private schools, the money's at the top, and it you know, the love of money is the cause of all evil. Nothing wrong with the money. It's the love of the money. But we're supposed to have the love of the students because that's our future. And that's, we have a strong public school system. We have a strong city, a strong state, and a strong country. And you know what else? We might even get some more good preachers. You can't preach if you can't read. You can't preach if you can't read good.
That's right, Reverend Arkles, Reverend Rev Brooks.
I don't text my messages, I speak.
All right.
Okay.
So listen,
okay.
I think that's a great.
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. I think that is.
I'm very adamant about it. I think it's sinful the way we're going, if I put it that way.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah, it seems as though we are definitely going backwards as opposed to moving forward, and so we still have to, you know, keep our eyes on that prize. And as you said, the love of money is the root, the cause of everything predominantly that's going on. And if we put that more love into our students, and even you know, towards each other, things would be so much better, because at the end of the day, you cannot take the money with you.
No, and you cannot hurt people that you truly love.
Yeah.
Because love, you don't look for any return. There's no strings attached. We need to love minds more than we love money, and the money will follow. If you want to be a rich person, just feel the needs of people around you, and the money comes automatically. Just like, you know, you want a Cadillac, make a good Cadillac, General Motors is going to make money. God bless you. And thanks for the time, and look forward to seeing you again sometime.
All right, Reverend Brooks, thank you so much, sir. Have a blessed and awesome holiday. Happy New Year's to you, and we'll definitely catch up with you in 2022.
That sounds good.
All right. All right.
All right.
All right, look. It's all good. Everyone, we've had a great segment today. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll come back and we will wrap up this segment of Urban Interest.
Okay.
Movies, documentaries, TV shows, local, national, and world news, history and culture. No one tells your story better than UIN, because we are you. With us, you can become more than a consumer. You become a keeper of the culture. Go to uintv.net, pick a channel to support, and subscribe today. Do it now.
All right, everyone, I have to reiterate what the announcer says. No one tells our stories better, because we are you, and that's why UIN Broadcast Network exists, so that we can have those poignant conversations, as well as guests to speak transparently. So stay connected with us. Today, we talked about how parents have had enough, especially over there in Bloomfield Hills, that school system, with the racist things that are taking place and civil rights violations. And I would say kudos to the parents, as well as the children, that are saying, we've had it. we've just had it. And don't think that it's easy to come in and talk about these things and not be impacted and affected by it, because I am. However, we bring you the news that you normally don't hear or don't see on mainstream media or local media. Then also, you stole the artifacts, UK, give it back. Give it back to Ethiopia. It's really plain and simple. It's not about a loan. It's about you giving back what is rightfully theirs. Then we had a conversation with regards to reparations with Mr. Kamm Howard, National Co-Chair, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. And then as well as we talked about public dollars going to private schools, and Reverend Arkles, not Sparkles, but Arkles, Reverend Arkles Brooks, who talked about, you know, that it's just wrong. In essence, bottom line is wrong. If you're a private educational institution, raise your own dollars and then have this say, but how are you going to take public monies and give it to private institutions? And we don't have, as the public, any say about that. Totally and absolutely wrong. Listen, stay connected to us at urban.interest on our Instagram, DetroitIPTV.com, YouTube, or UIN Broadcast Network. Have a great day. We'll come back with you on this Wednesday, and we'll have more stories as well as guests. We are into the holiday season, and you know what? I'm going to encourage you, get into the holiday season. Put up a light or a wreath or a small tree or something, and just get into the season. Don't let the Grinch of bad news, COVID, and all these other things take the joy of this season away. Take it back. Just do a little bit of something. All right, stay tuned, stay connected. We'll see you next time.